Hey guys, it's me, Kelly. I apologize for the technical difficulties. I blame it all on AT&T. That's right. It's all AT&T's fault. Back by popular demand, you guys wanted Mark Sargent to come back. We were talking about the flat Earth, and we got him back here on the show. Yay!
Yay.
So, yay! We'll see what kind of questions you have for Mark now that you've had about a month to chew on this information and see where it goes. So I apologize for the slow internet speed. AT&T is going to get a tongue lashing after this interview. So
not in a good way.
Not in a good way. So without further ado, here is Mark Sargent.
Hi. And you notice I don't have my dining room behind me this time.
I don't know. Oh, crap. It's not switching.
Oh, to me?
Yeah. Yeah, like when you talk, it's not switching to you. Crap.
Well, you still see me in the corner, though, right?
I just don't think you're going up there. Oh, gosh.
I'll be fine.
I'll have to do this manually. So, okay. Anyway, what have you been up to since I talked to you last?
Wow. Quite a bit, actually. It's been doing really well. In fact, we're already up to episode 8, which is coming up this weekend, this Saturday, called Strange, from the show's called Strange World. The website is officially up. When I started this, I never, ever thought I'd have to actually build a website, but I actually had to go out and learn Java and front-end web programming because I wanted to do it myself, because I figured, well, if anyone's going to do it, I'm not going to keep, because there's going to be so many changes to it. So I signed up for a crash course in programming for JavaScript. And so the website is called enclosedworld.com. And that's going very, very well. I mean, most of the time I just tell people to Google flat Earth clues, and that's all they'll need. But enclosedworld.com, and it's everything from YouTube's on there. All the transcripts are on there. My address to send me cookies is not on there.
I hate that. Because,
people said, "Oh, can I send you anything?" I go, "You know what? Send me cookies." And so I've been getting cookies in the mail, which is great. Store-bought cookies is fun. In fact, I just got a package from France the other day. A guy out in Marseille, France, sent me some Saint Michel cookies, so that was a lot of fun.
Oh, yum!
Doing a whole bunch more interviews. Did the Coast to Coast thing. They called me last minute, and so you guys can check that out. I had to sign a thing to where I couldn't rebroadcast it, but there's some people already up there. All you have to do is look up Coast to Coast Mark Sargent on YouTube, and it's out there. But I've got links. So I've got a video that says I can't rebroadcast it, but there's a link.
Yeah, but shh.
I'm not supposed to talk about that.
No, we're not talking.
But it was a great interview. They called me up, and it was really strange. They called me and their production people, and said they were pitching me. They said, "Okay, what do you want to talk about on the show?" I was going, What are you talking about? You haven't listened to the clues yet? They go, "No, what are the clues?" I was going, "Oh, geez." So, but that was fantastic. And when they say Coast to Coast AM, when they're not kidding. I was answering questions at 2 a.m, even though it's a West Coast show.
Wow.
And so that was really fun. Just did a show out of Dublin, Ireland on Monday. That was great, and their accents, Dublin, their accents were so thick that I almost, there was a couple points there I was going, you know what, I'm just going to answer the questions like I think they're asking them, and then
see what happens.
But it's a fun show. I mean, the host name was Mick O'Connell. Couldn't make that up if I tried, and then I have another interview I'm doing on Saturday, and then another one a week after that, and it's just been nutty.
Oh, that is so cool. How did Coast to Coast hear about you? Like how
they heard about me through Ground Zero, which I had done, I think, like a month ago. And that was a lot of fun, the Ground Zero show, because that was, I think, the first one where we actually took callers. And that was pretty late as well. And those callers were pretty nutty, pretty eccentric bunch. But the Coast to Coast crowd was really great. I love those guys. Not a disparaging word in the bunch. And so yeah, they called me real quick. So yeah, it's been kind of feeding off itself, and to the point now where people there's shows out there I just recommend anyone's interested in this topic. All you have to do is type in flat Earth into YouTube and just set the filter to like this month. There's stuff coming out every day from people that they're just coming out of nowhere. There's a guy named handle is Jarenism, Jarenism. He's being interviewed now by people, which is great. He just did All Talk Radio. The Morgile is doing good stuff, and that promo piece I just sent you a little while ago, that was done as a promo for a roundtable. There are stations now doing roundtables and discussions without any flat Earth people even behind it. You know, they're just talking amongst themselves, and it's fantastic. The amount of momentum that's building on this thing, it's crazy. So where I have to go in, I have to literally when I go in and look on YouTube, I have to set the filter to like today. And just see how much stuff has come out in the last 24 hours. And it's just, not all of it's good, of course, but it's just great to watch. I couldn't be more thrilled and humbled by the fact that it's just taking off. So, it's been great.
We had a private conversation after the show, and I just got this psychic intuition. I saw that this was about to blow up, and you were about to become like incredibly popular. Did you even believe me when I told you that?
No. In fact, there's something I can't even say on the air, and I'm not going to jinx it. There's some other stuff happening, and maybe I'll tell you off air.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, it's getting crazy out there to where, again, we've moved past the point of this is an untouchable subject to now where we're in the middle of the most heated debate I've ever seen, where there's people putting out stuff. I saw one yesterday, a roundtable where the view count was okay, but the number of comments doubled the view count. And I'd never seen that before. To where, because people are just going at it. You've got, the people that are willing to look at this as a serious topic versus the people that are just bracing against it. The people are saying, no, there was a globe in my first grade classroom. I know it's a globe.
Therefore, it's true.
Yeah, don't you dare take away my globe. And I don't blame them, but it's a fantastic debate. It gets a little mean at times because, the excuse me, the globe people, they'll go on and say, well, if you're not globe, you're an idiot. But that's their initial argument. And it's like, no, we're past that.
How intelligent. Woo.
Yeah, it's like, look, there's too many arguments out there. If anyone has any doubt, seriously, send them that promo I sent you. It's called on YouTube. It just came out. I'm pretty sure John LeBon made it, but it's being reposted by a guy named Matrix Decoded, and it's called The Flat Earth Show. And it's just a 3-minute little trailer for their roundtable, and it's outstanding. I wouldn't have changed a thing had I done it myself. I was looking at it, I was going, this is perfect. It's perfect. It's the great debate of 2015.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
And I want to remind everybody, I have the Q&A app on. I hope it's working because Google is kind of messing up today. It's a long story. But I have the Q&A app on. So if you do have any questions for Mark, please put it in that Q&A and I will ask the questions. Hopefully it's working properly. Yeah. Otherwise, we're going to have to wing it. Now, this sounds a little bit like the Christian Crusades. With some of them, it's like, no, you have to believe this or we will kill you.
Well, it is, but it's going from the other side because the flat Earth enclosed world model is hitting first, and so everybody on the other side, they're having to brace against it. So they're not ready for it. So initially, it's like the response is that initial response is always the same: you're crazy, you're ludicrous, you're insane. Why would you ever look at this? And slowly but surely, these people, and I've met a whole bunch now at this point, they look at the arguments to where now, and I think the roundtable discussion said the best. It's like, look, prove to me it's a globe. Yeah. Don't say that flat Earth's crazy. Show me that it's a globe at this point, because that's where we're headed. That's where the argument's headed. It's like it's not that the offensive against the flat or enclosed or whatever you want to call it. That part seems to be getting pushed aside now, and it's like, okay, globies. What do you got? Because you only got like 2 or 3 points, and they're getting dismantled fairly quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to see. I think there's a problem with Google, so I'm going to see if I can access comments, like comments on the video as we're doing this.
Okay.
Sorry, give me just a second. This gonna.
By the way, the reason one of the reasons I changed my background was because of you, because I had several people after your interview, because your background is so colorful and green, and there's all sorts of stuff back there.
Yeah.
That people, we were saying, you know, your side, my side of the conversation looked like I was in a freaking warehouse, and it was just my dining room, you know, because I like, you know, sparse, you know, settings in some ways. So they said, it's like, all right, fine. So I'll put me in front of the bookcase. So.
Fantastic. No, it looks like it's enabled. So I'm just going to like switch over every now and then and look for comments. Okay. You know, this is the old fashioned way of doing things. Get the pencil and paper out, you know, that's how it works.
Sure.
So let's see. Crow 777.
Yes.
You interviewed him. I had an interview with him, and I was talking all about you to Crow. so yeah, then you got to interview him, and he's like, wow, he was so impressed. Crow was like, boy, he came out of the gate fast. You know, he's not literally, but you know, you came from nowhere to boom, there you are, mainstream.
Yeah, and that's I'd like to comment on two parts of that. First was Crow. He was the first guest on my show, and in fact, that's airing Saturday. I let him take it first. You know, I had the raw audio for it, so I gave it to him first, and you know, put it up on his channel because you know he has a lot of followers. And yeah, he was the first guest I ever did on the show, and I've got, you know, several more guests coming up, but it seemed inevitable because we kept running into the same circles. You know, that, you know, one, he was on your show as well. He was also he was on Ground Zero before I was on Ground Zero. And that's how one of the reasons Ground Zero contacted me, even though he did not mention me. Eric Dubé and his people had also done interviews where Crow was also in the same circles. So we seemed to be kind of dancing around each other. And so yeah, we kind of joked around when he finally came on the show, and he's going, you know, because I said, well, it seemed like it was inevitable, and he goes, well, yeah, if you keep mentioning me in all your videos, all your interviews, of course we're going to end up talking. He called me, and it was great. Now, to your other point, and that is me coming out of the woodwork. Look, I completely understand, because there's going to be people out there that have said he's coming on, he's doing way too many interviews way too quickly from all over the place. Therefore, how can we trust his legitimacy? You know, how can we trust that? Look, I do not, you know, for those of you who say that, I don't blame you at all. I would be in that camp as well. It's like, where'd this guy come from? I completely understand. However, that being said, it's still happening. The shows, you know, I've done an Australian one, I've done an Ireland one, I did a New Zealand one, I've done Canadian ones, but they've all kind of, you know, we still answer pretty much the same questions. As far as an agenda goes, boy, I don't know how I can defend myself there, but I totally get it. Totally understand the number of interviews. I get that, including this one.
As far as believability goes, this is what happened to me. You know, I started out in my closet for sound reasons, for shutting the doors because my family was too loud, you know. So I started in my closet, and someone was like, you know, how can I believe you if you're in a closet, not at a news desk? So, you know, I had to deal with that. Yeah. And then someone was like, I can't, and that's why I got these. Just for fun. My husband thought this was funny. Someone said, you don't wear glasses, so I don't believe you. So my husband had me buy these so that when I want to make a point that I want people to really think about, I will put on my glasses and they won't believe me. So yeah, it doesn't matter what the background is. I mean, that's what people focus on is what is the background on your video if I believe you or not. Really?
By the way, you look good in glasses, but unfortunately, the computer monitor shines off them so brightly.
So I have to do my ow. I don't wear glasses. These are not prescription, by the way. These were like $150, but not prescription. Okay, so I have to look. So that doesn't look intelligent at all. Having to look to the side.
Oh, I don't know.
Like I have a neck problem.
It's such a stereotype that we fall into.
It does. It's like all you can see is my computer monitor.
Yeah, it looks like you've got 2 television screens on your head. Yeah.
That's good. So I'll never wear these again. Forget that.
Yeah. But no, Crow was great. I loved the interview, went really fantastic, and hopefully we can do some more stuff together in the future. Again, I challenge anybody. The reason why I was a big fan of Crow was, and I remember one of Eric's supporters challenged me on a roundtable, which I never put on my channel, which was he said, if Eric gives you better video than Crow's, will you use that over Crow's? I go, yeah. I don't care who gives me the videos. I go, if there's better stuff out there than what Crow's putting out, I'd love to see it, because even NASA doesn't put out as good stuff as he does. Mm-hmm. And that sounds kind of silly because NASA has all this high tech and yet they're not putting out anything.
Oh, but we know who NASA is. So.
Yeah. There was a channel, and I can't remember his name, but he or was it Jeranism? I think it could have been Jeranism. Yeah, I think it was, where he was doing like a gift card for anybody that could come up with the best acronym for NASA. And,
there's some good ones out there. Some we can't.
Good ones out there. I put in one called North American Sphere Agents. I thought that was pretty good. But there were other guys out there that put out some fantastic, like National Association of Space Actors, and the oldies but goodies. Never a Straight Answer.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that one.
There's some good ones out there. Some very clever. The internet is so clever, and I love them for it.
Oh, that is so cool. Yeah, I've got Crow coming back on the 23rd.
Fantastic.
Yeah, he's going to be back on. So we'll see how things are going with him. That is so cool. We've got questions now.
Throw them at me.
Oh, so CAC. I don't know what CAC means. I don't know. I think that's another language. Testing. Yes, it's working. Yay. Hello, Kelly. Hello from Greece. Someone likes you from Greece. Awesome. Greece.
Wow.
I love Mark's new background.
Yay.
We got that one. So we're getting your questions. So make sure you put questions up here. They just want to make sure it was working. So they're doing that. Oh, love the interview with Crow. Someone watched your interview. They loved it.
Cool. Thanks.
Let's respond. Okay. I wonder if all the astronauts are actors or what? Are they all lying? Ooh, good question.
Professional actors. No, they're not that good. In fact, I think my opinion, I've said this on other things, I think they are just, especially the new ones. The old ones were, the Apollo astronauts, I believe, were about as good as they were going to get. They weren't actors, but they were the real deal. They were, the real heroes. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, which is why they when they were told that they had to fake it, why they reacted so badly and went to depression and hid. But the new ones, they're just Air Force employees, in my opinion. The new way of doing things, from what I can tell, is they just make them sign disclosure agreements saying that, look, it's a clearance issue, it's national security, you don't get to talk about it, or you don't even get to ask about it. Yeah, you're going to be faking stuff. Everybody knows that, but you don't get to ask why you're faking it. So yeah. And again, anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about here, look up ISS. It's an Eric Dubé's got probably the best one up there. It's called ISS Hoax, which is, but there's some great other people that have done compilations, which covers what they're faking. And that is, look, when you look at the interior space footage of the ISS, basically showing all the people bouncing around in it, it's horrible. It's awful. And there's no question in my mind that it's being faked. So yeah, are they actors? No. Is it being faked? Yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We've got, this is something that caught me ever since this happened. I've got my pay attention genes, on red alert right now. Okay. So when you watch, I don't watch television, but these terms come out, and I do go to lobby. You know how you'll go to like a lobby and they've got a television on, and it's like, God, can you just turn that off? It just annoys the crap out of me because I don't watch television. It's just noise. Yeah. But you keep hearing all this stuff over and over. Global conspiracy, global economy, global society. Yep. That word global is used over and over and over. And that's reinforcement, isn't it?
It very much is. And I think Matt Boylan from the NASA channel was the guy that brought it up first. He was the one that I think kind of snuck it in. It was like, aren't you noticing that more and more it's changing from the world view to a global view?
You're right.
And the word globe seems to be replacing everything else that isn't globe, because globe is very unique. Because globe is used not just for the world; it's also used for anything, any spherical object, like Christmas decorations. And yeah, it's a great little reinforcement tool. Also, along with, and I don't know if we talked about it last time, which is the things that NASA does every month. Every month, go back and look at the stories, look at the news headlines. Every month, at least once or twice, almost like clockwork, NASA will release a story talking about what they're doing. And what they're basically doing is they're saying, oh yeah, by the way, here's what's happening with our Mars rover, which means you're on a globe. Here's what's happening on Saturn. Here's what's globe. Oh, by the way, we're repairing the Hubble Space Telescope, but you're on a globe. It's the subliminal stuff that they do every month. No corporation does this, as far as the news goes, outside of commercials. No governments do this. Only NASA does this. And it's very sneaky, very subtle. And it's a great reinforcement because remember, after you're out of school, you need some more reinforcements because while you're in school, you got the globe in the classroom. When you're out of school, you need a little push every once in a while to get you to remember. So yeah, reinforcements.
And some scientists have kind of debated on how many times, but it's roughly 13 times. If you repeat a lie 13 times, then someone believes it. Well, they have just blown that out of the water. By a million.
I mean, again, so many people, the reaction is, and I can't overstate this, if you put a globe, it's so perfect. You put a globe in somebody's classroom when you're in first grade, you don't even have to point at it. You don't have to do anything. Kids just walk up to it. They spin it around. Oh, look, I live there. And after, assuming they make it out of high school, it is in their head to where the knee-jerk reaction is. If somebody comes to them and says, what if you live in a Truman Show? The knee-jerk reaction is no, it can't be because I automatically live in a globe. They don't know why they think that, though. That's their first reaction. It's like, well, just because I know. It's like, really, how do you know? And then, then only then will they come back. That luckily, they've got NASA as a fallback position because they can say, oh, well, because NASA's got the pictures. But outside of that, they got nothing.
This is I looked at the comments and the people who are like, no, it's not true. And they keep, this is over and over and over. So I think it warrants a little bit of re-explaining.
Sure.
You explained it very well, but it's just, when people are just so kerfuddled with, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. They miss little details like this.
Yeah.
They'll go, but the Red Bull commercial.
I've got anyone wants to email me. In fact, either they can email you or email me. I've got somebody made.
Let them email you, please.
Okay, yeah. Email me at msargent23@comcast.net. If anyone wants to compare the Red Bull footage, which got national attention, versus the dog cam footage.
Dog cam.
Yeah, it's another group. There's been a lot of weather balloons going up lately, but there's a guy that made a little picture for me, and he basically put the dog cam picture versus the Red Bull picture. One's got a curvature, one's got a absolutely straight line. Only Red Bull's endorsed by NASA and the national media. Dog cam isn't, and so it's like okay. And they're both taken at roughly the same altitude. Dog cam was like 110,000 feet. Red Bull's like 120,000 feet. Should be almost no difference, and yet one is like a really heavy curve. The other is no curve at all. Don't tell me there's a curve. It is a fisheye lens. That is one of NASA's tricks. It's an old tricks of the best tricks, and fisheye lenses have been around forever. They didn't used to be. The lens itself was really made to give you a wider range of field of view. It's really no different than a peephole in a door. The peephole in the door, it'll show you kind of like that. That's a version of a fisheye lens. Imagine that though, if you put it on a camera. Yeah, you can see more, but the image is distorted. Absolutely. Again, anyone wants to see that, I will show it to them. As far as the knee-jerk reactions that people have, and I know they're saying no. There's so many videos out there. Look at my channel, Mark K. Sargent. And I've got a really short playlist called Flat Earth Related. It's the only playlist I have. I've only got one playlist actually, aside from my stuff, and it covers a whole bunch of stuff by other people. You could also look up a show I did called Flat Earth Review, which was I did on Strange World, which covers a whole, I covered all the clues, in one fell swoop in a 2-hour period. But the short version is this, for those people who have not figured this out yet. And that was, for the bulk of our lives, our civilization, first 4,500 years, every religion, every government, every culture, every tribe believed that we lived on a flattish disk surrounded by some sort of barrier. That changed only 500 years ago. And when it changed, and I think it was deliberate because, for our civilization to move forward and act naturally, we couldn't let people know that there was some sort of age. Human beings do not like cages. We do not like prisons. That's why we call them prisons. And that does not go over well. So you hide the barrier by telling people it's a globe, because if it's a globe, there is no fence. You can go around all day long. You're never getting off this place. But if it's an enclosure, then there's an edge and people will start looking for it. And I think ancient societies and secret societies all knew this, but the technology was not there to find it until we developed the internal combustion engine, which was, the beginning of the 20th century. And at that point, you had motor, power, gasoline-powered ships, planes, trucks, snowmobiles, and they started looking for it starting in 1928. And they kept looking for 30 years, almost gave up, found it in 1956. And the governments of the world at that point decided to hide it. I think we were naturally supposed to figure this out by now. And they have been artificially keeping this from us since 1956. Again, look up the short list of facts. Antarctica, absolutely forbidden to all corporations, no matter how much money. You cannot bribe your way in. You cannot negotiate your way in. You can't even talk about it. That treaty isn't even up for review until 2041. Corporations, as we know, our world is based off greed and money and power. No corporation can get down there ever, ever, ever. It's not even talked about. You're telling me that Exxon, that Shell Mobil, they cannot bribe their way in. They could bribe the way into your backyard.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally, they can frack anywhere they want. They can get
Tell me about it. They're doing it here. Yep.
Yeah. They can get anywhere they want, but they can't even. Not only can they not get in there, they can't even talk about getting in there. That's the weird part. You telling me they can't bribe a whole bunch of politicians? And it's not just the United States. If it was just the United States, I'd say it's one thing. All the nations unilaterally agree to never, ever go there, even though there's no plant life to step on, no animal life to run over, no ancient civilizations, and it's millions and millions of square miles. That's one thing. Second thing, look up pictures of the Earth from space. Find me one. Only one was ever released, ever. That's official, and that was the 1972. I might as well just say it's 1972 now. I go back and forth between 69 and 72. The Apollo 17 mission. It shows the bottom part of Africa and all of Antarctica, heavy cloud cover. It's the only picture that has been on the internet since the internet was on there, really, the only real picture. And it was literally, physically, the only picture before composites came out up until about 2004. And people started getting upset because there was no pictures of Earth from space. The first picture of the first iPhone that came out, that default globe picture that was on the first iPhone, that's a composite image they had to create because there were no pictures online that they could get or even get rights and access to buy it with royalty program. When you look up the Earth from space, you will not find any pictures of the Earth from space. They're all composites. NASA admits this. Go to, look around. There's some great videos on this. Why is that? There should be tens of thousands. NASA should literally have written the book on pictures of the Earth from space, and they never did it. Why? In fact, why, if you had a rocket program, I know I'm going off on a tear here. Why, if you had a rocket program that started in 1957, why was the first picture not released until 1972? And why was that 1972 photo the only photo that was ever put in textbooks? In fact, if somebody made a great thing where it's like, look, on the Nova DVD, PBS Nova history of, the Earth and the space program, that thing on the front is a composite. And they will tell you right up front it's a composite. Why are you using a composite on all your stuff? It's crazy. I'm getting excited. The only reason you would do that is because you can't do it. because you don't have the technology available to you. You don't have the ability to take a picture from space of Earth from that distance, because you'd have to take it, thousands and thousands of miles up. They don't have that ability. Why not? I know why not. Because it's not there. You can't get there to take the picture, and they've been hiding it from you. That's another part of the short list. The Apollo program completely dismantled for those, and that's an argument which I loved, because it bugged me for years, and that was why. Because everyone says, and here's the big thing: to get past this, you've got to do it in layers. You can't just jump into the deep end and hope you can swim, because a lot of people aren't going to buy it. They're going to be like, because you have to give up too much, but you have to start with, and I can't stress this enough, you have to start with NASA. They are the gatekeepers. They started this in 1958. The entire reason NASA was created was to keep this secret from you. I cannot overstate this enough. You will have to give up the moon missions eventually. Again, with the Crow stuff, one of the reasons I mentioned Crow, it's like, look, if there's a refresh issue on the moon, if there's a resolution issue where there's a visual display issue on the moon, then what did we land on? We didn't land on anything. You have to give up the Apollo program. You have to give up ISS. You have to give up all that stuff, and but you have to do it slowly but surely. And because people come back and they say, well, don't take away the ISS from me. Don't take away satellites. Don't take away this. I was like, look, you're going to have to give it all up sooner or later. But that's where I'm going.
The sun, because you look at that, you can go on the internet and you can see the sun spinning and all the little pew, pew, all that stuff going on.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned last time, why don't they have a dedicated satellite just pointing at the Earth, watching it rotate every day?
Yeah. It's so frustrating sometimes. You got to remember that it's not just photos. Okay, you think it's tough to find photos of the Earth from space? Try to find video.
Yeah, there's none.
Any video of the Earth from space in real time. There should be, and they'll say, oh, yeah, we've got dedicated stuff. Oh, yeah? You look at it sometime. It's horrible. You can find some of it out there, but there's gaps. You'll have these dead spots where it's like, oh, for whatever reason, because they've got to reset things. Find me ISS, real-time ISS footage that's not flying over an ocean, that you can actually tell where the continents are. And they cheat a lot too, where the ISS, it's like there's just tons and tons of cloud cover all the time. It's like, wait, is it cloudy over 3/4 of the Earth at all times? Don't give me that. The videos of the Earth from space, and again, I'll give credit to Matt Boylan, where he found, a great little video years ago where it showed real time, supposedly a 24-hour time lapse footage of the Earth spinning from apparently one of our satellites, but none of the clouds moved, none of the weather morphed. And he picked that up immediately. He's going, why isn't the weather moving? Why is the same cloud pattern there when it goes completely around the 24-hour period? And that because they can't. They have a really hard time trying to simulate organic cloud movement. And on top of that, you run the risk of having to put a real date time stamp on it. Because let's say there's a storm over India, right? Well, if that video is real and there it is, then you've got to make sure it all syncs up. It's like, was there a storm over India exactly when you took that video? Same reason why when they did the Apollo missions, why there was no stars in the background. Because in the Apollo missions, the computer, the processing power it would have taken to try to figure out where, because let's say, for example, because everything was date time stamped on the Apollo moon stuff. So let's say you're looking at the constellation of Orion and you see it, behind the astronaut. Well, what day was that on? What time was that on? Because nowadays we can hook up some modeling and figure out exactly where that constellation would be. And if that constellation's not in the right place, the nerd hive mind would go ballistic and they'd freak out. So that applies with everything.
There were some I don't know if they were scientists or scientifically minded people that had an explanation for that. That's because stars are not visible in space. You can only see stars inside this atmosphere. And my question is, how do you know? Have you been in space and looked yourself, or did you trust somebody else's information?
Yeah, from the moon's point of view, no. I know exactly why they did it. It was, and honestly, I would have done it too, because you can't give people the chance to. There's too many, and I've mentioned it before, and that is, look, there's a reason why human beings have an insatiable curiosity. Insatiable, which is why we have and we love finding the little mysteries, which is why sites like moviemistakes.com and all the other sites that are like that are so perfect for us. Because moviemistakes.com, for those of you who don't know, people will go through a Blu-ray frame by frame, and they will absolutely find literally, if something moves, if a coffee cup moves from here to here without the actor moving it, from scene to scene, or if a guy's watch changes or something moves out of place, they're going to find it. And they track it and they document it. You can find any movie you've ever loved. There's so many movie mistakes, and the bigger production, the bigger the mistakes is. So imagine doing that with real life, because before you only did it with movies and television shows. But now, because we can't necessarily trust all the news, we're doing it with the news and anything that's actually officially handed to us by government agencies, including NASA. You can't put stars in the background of the moon. You couldn't have done it back then. You could probably do it now, but unfortunately you can't do it now because you couldn't do it then. So even though because now they have the technology to do it, so now they're talking about,
how are they going to explain them suddenly appearing?
Yeah, exactly. Why are we seeing stars now? Unfortunately, there's got to be a consistency issue. You've got to keep it going forward. Same reason why, they're talking about the mission to Mars. It's like, oh yeah, we're going to put people on Mars. It's like, really, what happened to the moon base? What happened to other countries going to the moon besides us? Who's going to Mars? The Mars mission, what they're talking about, never going to happen. Never in a million years. They can't. The production, the detection ability of the internet, the hive mind of the internet has caught up with them to where if they even thought about trying to fake a Mars mission, it would just be torn apart. You thought the moon mission was torn apart? No, Mars would be just shredded. I don't care how many quality control people had. It's never, ever going to happen. They will delay that thing till doomsday. Mm-hmm. Never, ever going to happen.
Yeah, someone's going to go, hey, I was walking through the desert and I remember that rock that they showed on Mars.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's coming one of these days anyway. I know that, probably most of that footage was shot probably on a piece of land that's owned by the government that's fenced off.
Yeah, that no one's going to see.
You don't want to let people walk by and accidentally.
Oh, I recognize that.
Yeah. The internet forgets nothing.
Exactly. Someone is asking about, this keeps coming up over and over, the hollow earth.
Yeah.
What is the deal with the hollow earth and the flat moon? Like, is it related?
No, I like the hollow earth, and people I get that question several times a week. I was a big hollow earth guy. Really, I'm still a hollow earth fan because in my model it works. Now, is it the true? Okay. For those people who don't know, the true hollow earth theory says that if the earth is a sphere, then there's an internal sun in the middle of the earth, and that there's a civilization living inside the hollow part of our earth. However, in the enclosed system model that I've got, it actually still works just fine. Because now, granted, it's not as deep and it's not as big, but there's plenty of room to put in multiple civilizations. Most people don't remember that we live, our entire human civilization, even though we're spread out over a pretty big stretch of land, the depth is very, very thin. We only live, 95% of our population only lives between sea level and 5,000 feet. That's a really, really narrow band. You could put, imagine if you had a cave that was 20 miles high. You could put as many civilizations you want in a place like that. So yeah, hollow earth, I have no problem with whatsoever. In fact, hollow earth, the great thing about hollow earth is, where the entrance may or may not be at the North Pole. That's where the whole thing started. And Admiral Byrd, the guy that was responsible for the old Antarctica thing, he's the one that's really tied to the hollow earth. And for those people who don't know, look up, you want to see some interesting stories. See if you can dig up. It's going to be tough to find how Charles Lindbergh is tied to the hollow earth. That's an interesting story. Seriously. But if the hollow earth, if the entrance is at the North Pole, it totally works fine with my model. I have no problem. And if you prove one, you prove the other. That's the best part. So if you prove the hollow earth, you're going to know the shape of the earth. If you prove the other side, you're going to know whether the hollow earth is real. So they work kind of in sync with each other. It's great.
The moon landing makes me wonder if Chuck Yeager knew there was no way to get to the moon, that being the true reason he refused to be a part of the astronaut program.
Wow, that's a great question. That's a new one. Maybe. You know, he was respected more in the military flight circles than a lot of the astronauts, which is why they put him in. I mean, to the degree where when they made The Right Stuff, the movie in 1983, they did a pretty big segment on him, even though he was not an astronaut, which I thought was interesting. It's like they had so much respect for the man that they put him in a space program movie. And even though he had nothing to do with the space program, you know what? I like that. That's a good one because, yeah, he would have had enough contacts that maybe he did know and maybe backed out and said, you know what? I'm not going to get anywhere near. And truth is, his reputation is completely intact.
Yes.
Whereas the Apollo astronauts is degrading with every year. I'll throw one more thing into the mix. I'll take that to a bigger scale. And that is, why didn't Great Britain ever enter the space program with anything? And I think it was because they knew at the highest level and they said, you know what? We're not going to have anything to do with this. We're not going to spend a freaking dime. I mean, heck, they could have spent money on this. They have the money. They've got the people. They've got the tech, but they never got into it. Look at everybody else that's got into it. Japan, China, India, Russia, America, Great Britain, conspicuously, but very quiet about it. They don't do anything. It's like, you know what? And I think for them, I think at the highest level, they just made the voluntary choice. It's like, you guys want to throw money down at this? You can do it all you want. We're not going to waste it. And
the Queen said, I like my gold too much. No,
exactly.
Money.
It's good.
I've got them under control already. We don't need it anymore. What about airplane pilots? Are they aware of this? Because the perception of pilots, and I know this person is not going to be watching the shows. I'm not going to say their name or anything, but there are so many people who are pilots that are not necessarily critical thinkers, and people who really chew on theories and things like that. They're like, I just love to get in the air and fly. It gives a buzz in my pants, So I guess the question is, if they're so educated and they're pilots, why haven't they figured this out?
I think some of them have, but their profession forbids. All right, I'll go two ways with this. One is, how many American pilots do you know that have ever talked about seeing a UFO?
There was one, and it was very to me. Yeah. It was hush hush. Don't tell anybody. I told you.
Don't tell anybody. And that's just UFOs. I mean, everybody knows there's a famous case, and this, I'll give you a good one. In 1986, there was a Japanese cargo pilot. He wasn't even a commercial pilot, flying a 747 from Japan through Alaska. And he was being tailed by a giant UFO. The Air Force Base tracked it. He tracked it. Got on the ground. Talked. As soon as he got, he's going, this, you couldn't believe. He tried to ditch this thing. He could not ditch it. He got a desk job almost immediately. And he's known as the crazy Japanese pilot. The UFO followed him. That's just UFOs. When it comes to something like this, there's two parts of it. One is, if you're a pilot, and I talked about this in Clue 7 and Clue 9. And I don't know if anybody else has really touched on this, but there's two parts. One is, who are you going to tell? You're a pilot. You all of a sudden figure out that and you have to be flying in the Southern Hemisphere a lot to figure this out. Northern Hemisphere is going to be, you're going to notice a few things, but it's not going to be as obvious as the Southern Hemisphere. And remember, most of the stuff they do is on autopilot anyway for the long hauls, long haul flights. They just go up, flip the switch, start reading, books on tape or whatever they're going to, do. They don't care. They really focused on the landing. But let's say you figure it out. Two things. One is, who are you going to tell if you do figure it out? But that's just, I probably did this in the wrong order. The big one is it is such a massive leap of faith. On your standpoint, you're a pilot. It's not as bad as being like an astronomer, because astronomer, you're stuck. You're never getting out of this. You're going to be stuck in a globe forever. But if you're a pilot, you're going down the checklist. It's okay. The fuel consumption's wrong. This route is wrong. I have no idea what I'm seeing on the ground below me. The GPS looks right. You're going over in your head. It's like, oh, maybe I dozed off. Maybe I just zoned out. Maybe you're going to go through a checklist of 20, 50 things. Flat Earth, that isn't even, it's so far off the list. You would laugh at yourself kind of like I did, even thinking about it. And even if you got your head around it as a pilot, fine. You say, you know what? I think the map's wrong. I think the map, the globe map is wrong. You do your research. What are you going to do? You're going to go to the FAA? You're going to go to your company? Second, you even breathe flat Earth to anybody in the profession, you're done. Forget about desk job. You're done. It's over. And I'm not trying to. I'm sorry. What?
It's a psychiatric problem now.
Well, yeah. And I'm not trying to scare pilots out of coming forward. I'd love to see a pilot that said, absolutely, the stuff in the Southern Hemisphere is all completely wrong. The GPS system is screwed up. It's all a sham. But I understand why, in their case, look, that's a career move. If you're going to make this move, you better be real close to retirement or have got something going on the side because, you'd have to do it anonymously. If you were a pilot, it's just a huge leap of faith. Do I think some pilots know? Yes. Do I think most of them don't know? Yeah. Most of them are just blissfully ignorant of it because why would you ever think of that? If your fuel consumption's wrong, you're going to think something's wrong with the plane. If you don't know what's on the ground below you, you think there's something wrong with the GPS or your guidance system or something else. You're not going to make that leap of faith. It's so rare.
And so that's probably why they found all this stuff before GPS came into effect, because GPS routes some people off a cliff when it first came out.
GPS, by the way, those people who didn't remember, GPS was designed by the United States Department of Defense using multiple technologies, all military, went online, I think, in 95. And it is, in my opinion, the absolute best way to keep people. It was their last ditch effort to keep this thing a secret, and it has worked for the most part until we've got the real time tracking systems now online, and it's screwing them up.
Mm-hmm. So. Oh well, big deal.
Yeah.
If you tell someone that during the day you can see the sun and the moon at the same time, so what's on the other side of the Earth?
Oh, yes. The old time zone question. Okay, there's two ways to answer this. Okay. What they're basically saying is if it is perfectly flat, right? Let's say it's tabletop flat, which I don't necessarily believe it's tabletop flat. Other people say it's tabletop flat. If I'm proved wrong, hey, great. You guys won that one. But if it's tabletop flat and the sun's here, then isn't it shining everywhere at once? How can the sun set if it's perfectly flat? Basically, because the sun's got to go down somewhere. If it goes off in the distance, is it, how are you pulling that off? Okay, there's two ways to do it. One is you could use my model, which it means it's not perfectly tabletop flat. There is a slight curve. If anyone wants to look it up, it's called the Flattened Stationary Earth Map. It was done by Orlando Ferguson in 1830. And it's shaped more like a roulette wheel, where it's kind of got a bulge in the North Pole. I like that model because it handles the sunrise and sunset elegantly. You don't have to do anything special with the light source. However, for those people that are following the tabletop flat model, basically what you have to do is, and again, it can be done in software, it can be done in physics, it's easy enough to do. You have to make the sun a directional light source. And basically what you're saying is you can't make the sun omnidirectional. You've got to make it directional. And that's the only other way you could do it, because yes, I know what you're saying, because that's the only way you can have time zones. It's the only way you can do sunrise and sunset is you have to change the actual physics of the sun, which of course wouldn't be that hard because it's not that big anyway. It's not millions and millions of miles wide. It's not even 100 miles wide.
Mm-hmm. And to me, and I'm not saying this is the way that they do it, but I think I referred to this on the other show, that they have screens that you can put over your computer to where only the person sitting here can see what's on the computer screen, and the person sitting right next to them cannot see it at all.
Yes.
So that's the way it makes sense in my head. What you call directional.
Exactly. And that's that. And we can do that from a physical standpoint. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And from a software standpoint, we've been doing it in the gaming world for 10 years where you can, you're standing over at one end, I'm standing over here. We think we're seeing the same thing in the sky at the same time. We are not. because it is independent to you, and it's from a programming standpoint, it's very easy. So anyway.
I was interviewed by the 100th Monkey, and somebody that they apparently listened to all my shows and heard your interview and loved it. So
nice.
They wanted to ask me some questions about it.
100th Monkey is asking questions.
That's right. So, but the one guy, he was saying, and I drew it out so you can see what I'm talking about. You know how you've got a cloud and the sun goes through the cloud, and it doesn't just go straight down. It goes out like this. Yeah. And somebody explained that in the scientific world, that when the sun's rays hit our atmosphere, it scatters it. But still, that doesn't make sense to me, because our atmosphere is supposedly way high up, and if it was scattering it, it wouldn't be this big of a fan.
Yeah,
it would still be more straight. So
all right, I know this argument, and it really, unfortunately, this argument is not going to be one on either side. I do, but I will give you both sides of it. That is, there's a great YouTuber out there called My Perspective, and he's the one that's really been uncovering this. He thinks, I wish I could think like he did. He thinks in 3D models, and all his videos are text and 3D images, which he rotates around in different ways. So he will say, okay, if you're standing here and the sun's here, I'm going to pan around and show you what you should be seeing. And he's done a ton of videos on this stuff. He's from South Africa, I believe. His real name's Rory Cooper. Great guy. And he's shown some of that cloud stuff, where if you see a cloud, the clouds in the oceans are the greatest examples, because he's saying that, look, if the sun is 92 million miles away, the rays should be coming in differently. They should be coming in uniformly. You should not ever get those cloud sections where you see rays coming out in all different directions.
Yeah, like a fan.
Exactly. Like the sun is much closer than it really is. He going, you shouldn't see that if the sun is 92 million miles away. Now, science is going to come back and say, well, they're going to come up with something and say, well, no, they'll say, yeah, the rays happen, because they have to address it. They say, yeah, the rays are coming down from this cloud, and they'll bring up the atmosphere thing you were talking about. But unfortunately, both sides have a pretty good argument. I do like it. It's an interesting thing, but I will absolutely side with the sun being much closer, because there's some other videos, there's some real-time videos that show some hot spots taken from weather balloons. So when you're up very high, in fact, look up the dog cam footage I was talking to you about, where they look down at the ocean. So you're a weather balloon, and you're way above the clouds. So instead of being below the clouds, where those photographs you were talking about, like that little drawing, there's weather balloons taking from above the clouds, and there's some interesting hot spots that are showing on top of the clouds. And the flat Earth groups, and I'm one of them, saying, look, should that hot spot be there if the sun is 92 million miles away? Should there be a localized hot spot on the top of those clouds over whatever continent it was? It was very, very interesting.
Okay, now I have a question, and this is about lenses, and this is what does not make sense to me. Okay. I know this is an atmosphere and not a lens, but let me cover my second drawing. If the sun's rays are coming down and you've got like a lens like this, doesn't it bring all of those to a point, or am I thinking of that backwards?
No, you might be right. All right, couple things. Okay,
because this is what they're saying happens. They come down and then they scatter like that. It doesn't make sense.
There's several factors here. One is, was the lens made out of? Let's say if it's an enclosed world, like the dark lens you were talking about, or lighter. It depends. One, what is it made out of? The structure. Forget about atmosphere. If the atmosphere is lensing it, that's one thing. But what if it's a physical structure? If it is a physical structure, then what's it, depending on what the substance is, then yes, there could be lensing going either way. But you're also assuming that the sun is outside of it at that point. That's the other question. Again, I don't know the answer to this yet. And that is, is the sun inside the structure or is it outside the structure? Because people have put it to me both ways. They're saying, is it possible the dome is only 400, 500 miles high and the sun is 1,000 miles above that? Yeah, maybe, or is it inside? Is it only 400 miles high? We don't know.
Or does it not even exist and it is just an image on the dome like a television screen?
Yeah, possible, like the Truman Show, where they used a video projection sun. The sun was not a physical object, neither was the moon. It was just part of the hologram. It's not my favorite answer. My favorite answer is the sun and the moon are three-dimensional structures. And they're the only three-dimensional structures up there. Everything else is part of the Truman Show. But the sun and the moon, because they're so interactive with everything else, for me, from a design standpoint, that's what I would do. I'd make them three-dimensional objects just because, like the moon, the most photographed object in history and looked at. And then the sun does way too many things for me just to slap it on an image. But that's just me. So.
This guy, he is very respectful. He's just trying to figure all of this out, but he's very, very skeptical. Engineers who design long multi-mile bridges have to include a correction factor for the bridge's dimensions to compensate for the curvature of the Earth of an 8,000 mile diameter sphere. This is a documented fact, and there are many more facts out there.
I understand his opinion. To him, I say, look, there's a whole bunch of bridge videos that are coming out. They've been out for the last couple months on YouTube. Look up Flat Earth Bridge. That's all you have to type in. You will find arguments in the other direction that say that those bridges didn't account for the curvature.
Okay.
That's my argument there. I know where he's going. I know, look, from an engineer, if I was an engineer, the more technical you are, the more, unfortunately, it's going to sound horrible. The more science degrees you have, the tougher this is going to be because you have been indoctrinated way more than the rest of us. Again, for those people that just had a globe in their classroom, that's easy. But if you throw on textbook after textbook after textbook that was written by the people that are trying to hide it, look. You were going to have the toughest time getting through this, no question. But I am a firm believer that it's coming. There's way too much stuff. There's way too many people talking about this and accepting it at a speed that seems almost unnatural. And it's not like your other conspiracy stuff where things kind of ebb and flow. But this thing, I'm not going to say it's unstoppable, but it certainly appears inevitable at this point.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's going to be addressed one way or the other. Either if it isn't this, then NASA and the governments in question, I don't know who would be the representative come forward. If something's bigger than this, it's very few options I can think of.
And I want to get his questions out of the way, give him the respect he deserves. Ask questions. Because he said, I say these things with all due respect. I got to play devil's advocate. And then he says, yes, this will get voted down, but the ancient Greeks figured out the diameter of the Earth is around 2,500. Diameter of the Earth around 2,500 years ago. Okay. Did I say that right? Did I say that right?
No, that's fine. That's fine. However, that opinion was not widely shared 2,500 years ago. Not in the slightest. As a fact, keep doing his research. He'll find that the other group that dug into this that also got hammered down pretty quickly were the Chinese. The Chinese, I believe, in like 200 BC, they also suggested it. It's like, is it possible that the Earth is a globe? And they got just beaten up because everyone else was saying, "What are you kidding me?" I get what he's saying. Fine. The Greeks had a thought that the Earth was around 2,500 years ago, but they were in the severe minority. So don't know what to tell you. It was an idea that was easily enough pushed on the public that when 500 years ago, when the globes were first put out there, again, great idea, but no way to prove it. You could not prove it until 500 years later. And then where was the proof? Why isn't there a ton of proof right now? Again, I don't want to keep harping back on this because it's not a cop-out when I say this. Fine, if it's a globe, show me the pictures of the Earth from space. That's what it's really going to boil down to in the end, because that's where the authority comes from. Because somebody eventually is going to have to go to somebody in the government and say, prove to me the Earth is round. The government's going to have to go to NASA and say, okay, show us the evidence. And NASA's got nothing. Why? Why not?
And NASA says, you prove it to me.
Yeah.
Is the flat Earth out in space? What holds the flat Earth up?
People have suggested, and in fact, George Norrie from Coast to Coast mentioned it. He goes, is it possible that it's like the end of the movie The Signal, which I showed you, where the Earth is flying, is just part of a giant dome kind of spaceship that's flying through space, and we're going from one place to the other? Yeah, it's possible. Not even close to my favorite, because you wouldn't need space. People say, isn't there outer space outside the dome? It's like, yeah, but why? If you can fake space, then you don't need it. And if you're faking it, you're probably faking it because there isn't space. Meaning, if you're on a disk, if you're on an enclosed system, and you can convince the population that they're in space, chances are you're not actually in space. You're probably in a bigger room or a bigger area, or it could be a much bigger planet for all we know. But do you even need planets at that point? Could it just be, could the universe as we know it, and I don't want to get all existential here, but could we be, could the universe be square? From a, could we be in a giant box? But I don't want to get once I start going down that road, you get into the Russian stacking doll argument, which is, dimensions within dimensions within dimensions. I try to live one world at a time, every day, one beer at a time, that sort of thing.
Why do other planets have, why don't other planets have seasons like we do? Usually they have predetermined temperature that the planet is. Why do we experience all temperatures besides the atmosphere on our Earth only? The only explanation, because I'm beginning to think it's BS.
That's good. No one's brought that one up. That's a good one. Why don't planets have... now, there's going to be some people that say they do have seasons. But since there's so much cloud cover on those planets...
cloud cover. We've heard of this before.
A lot of cloud cover on those planets. We don't really get to see what's underneath. And, of course, we always say we've dissected, what all the gases are in the core of Jupiter and Saturn and all that stuff is. That's a good one. For me, again, the planets are... just images. The planets and stars, they're beautifully rendered images, part of a gigantic clock system. But since we can't get to them, we can't. But that's a good one. That's excellent. I hadn't even thought of it. Why don't I'll have to do some research into that. But that's a good one. Good question. But yeah, for the short answer is because somebody got lazy. And it's like, look, let's just make it to where it's like heavy cloud cover and gas, so you can't really see much what's going on there anyway. And since they're not going there, and the telescopes aren't going to be able to penetrate much anyway, let's just kind of let that go. That's from a design standpoint, they may have to get fixed in the next version. Good one.
What happens when you get to the border of the Earth? Are they just going to kill us? Obviously, the borders are manned. Yeah, that's also an excellent question. People have asked me that because there's a multinational navy that there's only military down there. You can take a tour group. You can spend $10,000 and go into, take a tour group along the peninsula of Antarctica and get photographed with penguins and all that fun stuff. But as far as the interior goes, it is heavily, heavily monitored. You can't do expeditions just on your own. You got to get permits. You got to go through certain groups. They need to know exactly what route you're taking. And I don't believe for a second that you can just go in there on your own. As a matter of fact, there was a thing that was released just last year, just out of the blue, and that is, because people are starting to buy more and more of those little portable drones, those little helicopter drone things, where the Antarctic Tourism Board, for whatever reason, you can look this up online, where they said, oh yeah, by the way, don't bring those drones to Antarctica. It's like, why the heck not? I don't want to walk across the snow and look over that hill. I want to use my little droney thing. It's because they don't want to take chances. They do not want to the same reason you don't want to let corporations, you don't want to let people get
any sort of foothold, because eventually those drones are going to get better. And let's say a drone goes off course. Let's say you have a solar drone, one that can fly for a long time. Yeah, what happens there if that thing gets off course? Does it keep going? Do you actually get video? These people don't take chances. Not when it comes to this. They will take chances on all sorts of other stuff, but when it comes to Antarctica, they're very, very thorough. And so, yeah, the short answer is, yeah, if you try to take your own expedition, charge the ice, and go on your own, chances are you're going to run into some military personnel. I'm not saying they're going to drone strike you right away. They'll probably try to, just escort you off the ice. But if you got far enough, yeah, maybe. That's what I would do.
This is cool. And the question I was about to ask you just disappeared. I don't know why.
Oh, it's okay.
And this person is talking about the curve. When I was on Table Mountain, and I think you've already answered this, but I just want to make sure.
Go ahead.
When I was on Table Mountain, I could see a curve in the sky. Was that a trick
in the sky? Oh, wait, what? Like a reflection in the sky?
I don't know if they're saying the question properly, but I'm thinking they might have been talking about like the sky where it meets the earth. I'm just guessing that there was a curve, but you have already said that you think that the earth does have a slight curve.
On my model, I think there's a slight curve. Now, whether or not it can be photographed, that's a whole nother thing. For those people that think they see a curve, the easiest way to do it is go to a place where you know that you don't have any mountains to deal with or any uneven terrain, and forget about what you see. Take a picture. Don't take a picture out of the freaking plane window. If you can help.
Okay, now someone asked about the window. Isn't the window almost like that fisheye? Doesn't it have like a weird curve
it's not fisheye, but I've done a lot of business travel in my life. And it's distorted to a certain degree. Now,
it is, but I can't figure out how it's distorted.
Well, one, it's double paned, for different reasons. But it's not... There is a little perspective issue. I don't know if they do that deliberately or not. I wouldn't think they would because no, I don't think they do. Because it's because you don't need to, because people don't, again, it's such a leap of faith at 28,000 feet, at 30,000 feet, you're not gonna, you wouldn't be thinking about curve anyway. But anyway, sorry, to answer that guy's question, for those people who think they can walk outside to a beach or some, high plateau and see a curve, fine. Take a picture of it. Put it on your computer monitor, put a ruler up to the horizon, and tell me if you still see the curve, because there's plenty of videos out there, and that's all people have done. They do this. It's like, look, you may think, but that's part of the conditioning. You want to see the curve. Trust me when I say this. For anyone who's seen this for me for the first time here, look, I wanted it to be a globe. I tried to debunk this for 9 months, and I'm one of the better creative problem solvers I know. Did help desk and tech support. I could find a workaround for everything. And I was beating my head on the desk after 9 months, saying, please be a globe, because I like the globe. I like it as, I think it's a really,
it makes you feel sane and normal.
Yeah. That's just what we're brought up with. It's a cool little icon. You can hold it in your hand. It's really slick. It's uniform. But after 9 months, I realized that everything that pointed towards the globe didn't. And the only reason I was believing in a globe was because I was assuming it. I was assuming that everything I was told as a child was true. And like all of us, why would anyone lie to us? Why would the globe be a lie? Why would they lie to us? And it's an obvious reason, because they don't want us, because if we don't know it's a globe, if we change our minds, we know there's a fence, we know there's an edge. That will be our lives. We will focus on this. Maybe not you and me, but there will be people dedicated. They will sell their homes. They will join whatever congregation, and they will go look for it. They will want to see it for themselves, and multiply that by about 1 billion people, at least.
Now, when you're talking about the continents, this is just like a lesson in school. And I don't know if this is a question, but it'll hopefully, I'm sorry, my octopus is, well, it's not really an octopus, it's a sextopus, because there's only like 6 legs on it. How do you make it? Tiffany.
No, that's an octopus.
Tiffany. Well, it's got 6 legs though, because it's got 1, 2.
It's either that or a sea monster.
4, 5, 6. I don't know. It's really cool.
Is it like a kraken?
I'm not sure. Can you see?
Yeah, that's really neat.
It might be a kraken. I'm not sure.
You're going to get a lot of comments on that. That's a great necklace.
Thank you. Okay, you know how is it the pan spread or whatever, where it appears that all the continents were basically like one land mass.
Oh yeah. Pangea.
Pangea.
Yeah.
So, and then they spread apart. Here was my question. Okay, when you fit it, and then you just go, okay, this is too big for me to munch on. What am I having for lunch? So when they spread, when you put them back together like a jigsaw puzzle, it's okay. The image in my mind was if it was a globe,
yeah,
then this whole entire part of Earth was completely solid water, and there was one landmass on the other side that split, and then what? I'm like, what? That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make that much sense in a globe.
But if it's flat,
then
you could have that landmass in the middle. Then you broke it apart. That makes more sense to me.
You're right. Do you
guys know what I'm talking about? I'll talk to the audience.
Did you
question that
on your own? Was that your idea?
What idea?
When we were talking about Pangea on a globe, did you just come up with that little concept of how it doesn't work on a globe that much?
Yeah, because nobody asked that. I thought that all these years, I'm like, how can they only fit together? And then all the land is on one side of the earth, and then the complete entire earth is covered in water. Like, what?
You're right.
It never made sense.
You're absolutely right. Pangea, for those people who don't know what you can just look it up, Pangea, where the concept that all the continents started out as one giant mass and it broke apart over time. Does not work that well in the globe, because the globe is at that point it would have been even more water than land. But on a flat model, you start it in the center and then it spreads out naturally. For me, the earlier versions of our civilization, or as I like to call them, world point 1, world point 2, the early versions, you would have started out with Pangea, and then you would have let the populations kind of distribute, and then move out the continents from there. Absolutely right. Works way better on a flat model.
Okay, so I feel better now.
No, that's good. That's a great one.
It makes sense. On a flat Earth, they can do that, but on a sphere, like, it never made sense in my head. So that's why you just go figure out what to eat for lunch instead of contemplating that. Because if you ask your teacher, it's like, well, it just is. End of discussion. Yeah. Don't question me. Go to the principal's office if you do.
Yeah, it's worse than Sunday school as well.
Oh gosh, I don't want to mention Sunday school. Don't take me back there. Let's see. Maybe Earth is a quarantine and we live in a glass screen, like a snowflake globe. Yeah. So some people think, and is this because this is just probably theory and you guessing? I don't know.
Go ahead.
But maybe there was a sphere that we were living on at one point, and maybe we didn't know what it looked like. We didn't have the technology or whatever to look back at it, and maybe we were living our lives, and then something happened. Maybe we were captured, who knows what. But then they put us on a floating snow globe in space to do something with us. Is that a possibility?
Very, very, very possible. In fact, there was a video. I can't remember the guy that put it on YouTube this morning. Was it Blastered? I can't remember, but he was talking about it like a prison planet, and he used it. Well, not kind of. He was actually saying it was a prison planet. And some people will look at it like that. Were we quarantined? Are we trapped? Are we caged? Are we being held against our will? Well, that's very, very possible. My only dispute with that, and I actually like the guy's video, even though he was real angry and aggressive. My only dispute with that is, if you were going to do that, why hide the bars? Why keep it hidden from us? Why make such a beautiful planet? Because it is, we're the only things in here that have seemed to have done damage.
Mm-hmm. And that's like the next question. It's like, why?
Oh, you mean why? Oh, well, let's segue over to that then. Mm-hmm. So why was it built, or why are the authority keeping it a secret?
Well, you were just asking why. Why don't they show us the bars? Why are they hiding this?
Because from a natural, and I know it makes us seem kind of like an experiment, and part of it maybe it is. Part of it may be, what do they do? What will the humans do in this case? You've got to keep us acting naturally, with which is why I did I can't remember the clue that touched on it right off the bat, but it talked about like a wildlife preserve. If you put buffalo in a wildlife preserve, if it's big enough, they just act naturally because they never, chances are they aren't going to run into the fence. Humans, however, are unique in that capacity. And that is, once we see the fence, that's all we care about. We don't care if there's 1,000 miles of free range behind us. All we focus on is the fence because of our curiosity. It's like, okay, what's the fence for? Who made the fence? Why is it? Are we being held here? It's like, what can we do to appease the people that made the fence? That's all we will do. And that changes everything about our civilization immediately and completely. So the best way to get around that is to just make the fence never ever there. Just make it invisible. Not you can. And unfortunately, you can't make it just physically invisible because then we're just going to bump into it. It's like, who made the invisible fence? And then the whole thing starts over again.
And then the fence gods, and then you sacrifice to the fence gods.
The fence gods. That's a good one. I mean, that's a good title. May have to steal that.
Go for it.
But if you say it's a globe, then no one roams around at all. And then again, you put in those natural negative reinforcements, like increasing cold weather out to the edge. You put out icebergs out there. You make a continent, and people don't understand. It is so unique as a continent. It's like, okay, it's steep. It rises very quickly. Yeah, I know the ice is only a couple hundred feet high at the shoreline. That's still pretty high for most people. But then it just keeps going up to 2 miles high, and then it plateaus out, and the whole continent's at 2 miles high or higher, which means you got altitude sickness you have to deal with. There's no plant life to eat. There's no animal life to eat. No one can survive there for any length of time. You can't grow crops there. So there's these natural reinforcements that keep you away from the fence. And those you combine with a high altitude sickness at the upper part, because most, as far as I know, most people can't fly. Then you cut off the outer point and the upper point, and that's all you need. And then the population does about its daily duties until that lasts about 500 years. But now we've come technologically to the point where it looks like it's inevitable that we're going to figure this thing out. And the powers that be that have been hiding it, they knew they weren't going to be able to hide this thing forever. So will they try to distract us with another event? Will they stage something? It depends. If they do the right thing, and I'm hoping if you guys are listening, do the right thing. But men in power are, it's like death and taxes. It's inevitable that they're going to do the wrong thing. So I think they're going to do everything they can and dig in their heels. But that's just me.
Now there are like whales, for example. What I've noticed is when they capture whales and they put them in an enclosed. Tiffany, what are you doing? Oh, good grief. I'm sorry. When you put whales in an enclosed system, their fin that is like that, it will go like that.
Oh yeah, it's good.
Yeah, when you watch the movies, you can see it. The ones that have been captured, their fin goes over to the side. And I'm just saying that because the humans don't have fins that aren't going to bend.
Good point.
But someone is asking a question over here, like, how do I tackle this subject with our children? How do we best keep them open-minded and keep them out of trouble at school? And then I guess, a double question was mine. Like, now that they know they're in an enclosed system, how are they going to keep their fin up?
I'll answer this two ways. One is because I've had a couple of people that are homeschooling their kids that have asked me this, and they said they're gonna throw both things at them. It's like, look, just keep an open mind when it comes.
Oh, that's good.
Well, that's for the homeschooling people. Okay. Just teach them both. It's like, look, we used to think it was flat, then we heard it was a globe. Now we're not so sure, right? When it comes to school, though, again, just give them the possibility of it. Say, look, I know that, because it is the only topic that really, you can go against, all the false history that we've been taught over the years in history books, but that's a side note compared to this. This is really the only topic that you got to throw it out there to give them the possibility. It's like, look, I know that you have a globe in your classroom, but it is very possible that it is not a globe. Just, but it also, it promotes healthy debate. But to answer her question, how do you keep the fin up?
Yeah, that's the tough part. And the reason is I didn't realize what was going on with my daughter until she was not doing well at all and upset and angry and having all kinds of issues she was kind of keeping to herself. Because I grew up differently. I grew up, the earth is a sphere, go to church, these are absolutes, don't question it, So I grew up unhappy, but unhappy and stable, if that makes any sense. Yeah. Now my daughter is going to school, and this is something I probably need to think about doing something different. She goes to school and learns certain things, and pretty much she learns like 80 to 90% lies in every single class she goes to. And then here at our house, we talk truth and what's really going on. We actually do the research, and it's like, I don't know why they're teaching you that, baby girl. I'm so sorry. That's not true, at all. So she is so torn on the inside. I feel like it could even destroy her. This is awful.
This revelation, if it comes to pass, and I firmly believe it will, changes, and I meant what I said when I got to clue 11, as far as how it could change the world. As far as keeping your fin up, you won't have to worry about keeping your fin up if this thing actually happens, because if it becomes true, the world, and I'm going against the people that saying there'll be people running around the streets burning things, the world should become a better place overnight. And that's because we become a community, literally. We become a family. If we're all in this together, and if you want to call it a lifeboat in space or a one-room apartment, we all become roommates. And think of all the stuff that would end overnight. Would wars really happen? No. Hate crimes? Absolutely not. Racism? Yeah, it'll be diminished though, somewhat. Sexism? There'll be certain things in that side that'll be diminished somewhat. Will it be removed entirely? Probably not. But people will act better because there's a chance, even if we reveal it ourselves, but the creators still don't reveal, the builders, whoever it is, doesn't, all of a sudden show up. Even without that, that somebody's looking over your shoulder, not in a bad way. Some people say, oh, no, it's an overlord thing. It's a prison thing. It's really, because I see it kind of like, a parent looking at his kid and there's a plate of cookies on the dining room table and you want to get them, but your parent is sitting over there and full well you're not supposed to. Why are you looking at the cookies in the first place, right? You're not supposed to get them till after dinner. We naturally, of course, we're mischievous. We want to do the bad things. But if you've got a guiding force, chances are you won't. And we will become naturally better because of this. I firmly believe that. Or at the very least, fine. If you want to be a pessimist, it's like, look, it can't get any worse than it is now. All the bad things out there is look. Why I've tried to tell people is saying, well, it's not going to turn us around entirely. It's like, fine, it's not going to be, maybe the civilization won't turn around 180 degrees and undo the things we've done. But I think it'll be at least a 90-degree turn one way or the other, and it'll take us away from the cliff we're driving at right now, at the very least. And that is my hope.
Now, you were talking about, and this kind of relates to this, the Tower of Babel or Babel, however anybody wants to pronounce it, that this was similar to what the Bible was saying, but it was basically people building a type of tower to go up and touch the dome or to get to the dome.
Yep.
And then they were, is it pretty much like the Bible story, only plus a little space age?
Oh yeah, the story that I did. Yeah. When I did Clue 8, I called it Creative Force, and I talked about. I didn't use the Tower of Babel by name, from Genesis, but that's what I meant. Everybody knows.
Oh, that. I knew. I went to church, so I knew what you were talking about.
Yeah, everybody does. But I still got all these emails. It's like, you're talking about Babel, aren't you? I was going, yes, I am. Thank you for catching that, and it was good that they did. But there were two things. One, and I didn't touch on this in the clue, was one, the Tower of Babel makes no sense on a globe. One, if it's on a globe, then you're just building a structure that's going into space that's not doing anything. And two, the globe is spinning. So if you're aiming for something, then it also doesn't make sense because now you're a moving target. Basically, the tower is moving with you around. It's like, okay, then there's two reasons. But in an enclosed system, if you actually measured it out and you said, you know what, it's that high, we can reach it. If you've got an older civilization, advanced technology, call it Atlantean, call it whoever you want, that had the tech to do it, absolutely. If they were confident enough, that's what they would do, and that certainly sounded like it, because from how the story goes, all the civilizations were united, and they had a common mind, a common goal. And what's the first thing that they're going to do? They're going to challenge whoever built this thing. And they, it was like, okay, we're going to build it. We're going to build it. And the story the rest of the story goes, it's like, well, the creator looks down and goes, yeah, it's probably not going to end well. So let's shut this thing down. But instead of just destroying the tower, just obliterating it, said, you know what, let's break up their languaes. So
because they got organized too well. Yeah,
so the engineers can't talk to the construction guys, and all the different groups couldn't talk to each other, and so then scatter them, and then that was the end of it. It was a very diplomatic way of doing it, in my opinion.
Yeah, they did that quite well, didn't they?
Yeah.
I'm looking at the model right now. They were talking about Neil Adams' Pangea model, and I'm looking. And I don't know, it's not fixing in my mind. That's not working.
That's all right. It's all right. The Pangea model, it doesn't really matter. It's a fairly small point. Just from my model, the continents were grouped together obviously long before our civilization, but could have been the early versions of this structure. It could have literally been the first part of this, where that is, okay, let's just group the continents and let's see what happens, and go from there.
Yeah, and then they built a tower.
Yeah. It seemed like a good idea at the time. What was it? The first versions of the Matrix that they joked about in the movie, where they said, where no one would accept the programming and everybody was, happy, and so they had to, so the Matrix was, disbanded, and they had to start over. But
in all of these interviews that you've had,
yes,
what have been some unique questions that they have asked that might not be in your series? Or they just the same questions over and over because they're still in shock?
Unfortunately, there's a lot of the same questions. I mean, that just comes naturally, because you're not going to get unique questions all the time. There's always little aspects. I mean, the little stuff we were talking about earlier, just I can't remember. I'd have to review it now. That's how this thing's going to get discovered, is the subtle little nuances that the people throw out there. That's how this thing's going to get pieced together. Eventually somebody, there's going to be enough little things that people are going to figure out. They're going to go, it's just all we're doing right now is filling in the cracks of the broad strokes. But I don't know, unique stuff. People
or just stuff that's different, that maybe you hadn't thought of when you did your series. Now it's like, oh, maybe I need to do another series and add this stuff on.
Not too many, not that many unique stuff. I mean, all I'm doing now, not necessarily in interviews, but the stuff that I'm seeing now really is coming from the YouTube community. The people that are putting out stuff outside of mine, and if they're building off my work, which is great, that's the stuff that's really digging into the little things. Again, a lot of it's repetitive. I don't know if there's any one interviewer that has blown my mind. I mean, obviously I love you, but the I don't think any one reviewer or I'm sorry, interviewer has said something that it just threw me. Because I've watched so much stuff on this now, and I've done so much research on my own. And again, remember, I tried to debunk this thing for the longest time, that I haven't been derailed yet. So everything that's come, right now, no, nothing unique yet. Maybe one day, maybe you. Maybe you.
And I hear your inbox is full of marriage proposals.
It's not. I do get pictures. I do get phone calls. Some lovely voicemails. But no, I'm currently not dating. But that's for a completely different reason. No, not marriage.
You're a little busy right now.
I am a little busy at the moment. Not marriage proposals though.
So it's funny. It's so funny about Mark because, I have all these guys on, and I'm not saying you're not intelligent because you've blown me away. Yeah. But it's so funny because with you as a guest, they're more focused on how cute you are. the information. So that's to your advantage.
I'm sorry. I grew up with guys, and my high school wasn't even that big by comparison. And I hung out with a group of guys that were so good looking that I was absolutely hidden in the shadows the entire time. One of them even accidentally became an international male model. That drove me nuts. And I'll tell you that story afterwards. But so no, if people say I'm cute, hey, great. But I never, when I was growing up, trust me, I couldn't hold a candle to most of my friends.
I'm not going to say his name. He is very famous and he's been on Oprah. Oprah really loves this guy.
Yeah.
But he's all wrinkled up and, and I'm not saying that's ugly, but, it was somebody that was my age was like, oh, he's so hot. Oh, he's so good looking. And I'm like, okay, what is the attraction? It's like, I think intelligence is sexy. So
I heard that humor was, and I don't tell enough jokes in my clues.
Well, you don't need to.
Oh, but actually, you're actually right, because what they say, women find humor intelligent. They connect the two. If you're really, really funny, then you're obviously funny. You're smart enough to tell really good stories and jokes. So
there you go.
How about, can we go another 10 minutes? You think is that enough?
Sure. I was about to end, but yeah, if you have more to say, then we want to.
Well, if you have more questions,
the questions, they're kind of repeats of that. But one, I don't know anything about this, and you might not either. This might be beyond, what you've studied.
Yeah.
For the Pangea concept, if it fits together now, it wouldn't fit together when we add Atlantis, Lemuria, and all the other continents that used to be here. So, okay, well, maybe that's a question. Like, if there wasn't Atlantis, the controllers, what did they do with it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a good one. And was there some cataclysmic stuff? Was there an Atlantis continent? It very well could have been. I mean, yeah. All right, let's put it this way. If you're talking about Pangea, it doesn't have to just spread and that's it. There could have been some rising and falling of continents. What they're talking about is Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu, some big land masses. You could combine. Let me throw them at this way. You could combine the spreading of the land masses with, say, a shifting of where the oceans are, as far as raising and lowering different parts of the ocean. You can combine the two. It doesn't necessarily conflict. I still think the Pangea model is very, very solid. But yeah, absolutely. Are there land masses that have risen and fallen? Absolutely. We already know there's cities sunk out, in the oceans that are under some pretty heavy water or some pretty deep water, which it's like, okay, where did those guys come? And that land had to have been above at a certain point. That got sunk. So yeah, there's been some rising and falling. Sure.
And this is maybe your opinion or whatever. The difference between aliens and angels or multi-dimensional beings, where aliens come from another place and they're kind of physical, and where angels or whatever are kind of multi-dimensional beings. Who do you feel is in control of us in this that's going on? Is it a multi-dimensional or is it all the same?
Yeah. And let's make this one the last one, because it's a good one to end on.
Okay.
There's different facets of it. Is there a difference between what we have described in various religious texts as angels, as jinn, as all the different religions have their own versions of it? Is there a difference between interdimensional beings, what we call aliens, and what we call divine spirits? We won't know until somebody comes forward. As by that I mean not our groups, not the authority. I mean whoever built this place. Yes. Do I believe there's things? Do I believe there's things flying up there? Yes, I've seen them myself. I've used night vision binoculars. I've watched them for years. The sky is crawling with stuff that has nothing to do with us. People say, "Well, no, it's all our technology from Area 51 and Roswell." No, you want to look at the interesting stuff. I mentioned this last time. Look up the 1561 Nuremberg event. The greatest UFO event of all time, 1561 over Germany. Do not tell me it was sundogs. It was in April, lasted for an hour. It was massive. There's a newspaper. The newspapers from that era still exist. Don't tell me that it's all us now. Do certain governments, are we reverse engineering technology? Yeah, of course we are. That's what anyone would do. But is there a difference between all these different groups? Probably. The things flying around there, are they the maintenance team? Are they the superintendents? Are they the janitors? Possibly. Do I think they built the structure? Maybe, but because people said, well, if they build the structure, do they have the ability to? Hang on one second. Let me call you right back, okay? Sorry. That's
I love it. It's probably a marriage proposal.
No. That's the lunch thing I got to go to. I saw her. She's a very nice person. Do these aliens have the ability to go through the structure? Yeah, maybe if they've got a unified field, maybe they do. Or are they trapped here with us? If you believe in the Hollow Earth theory, are there remnants of older civilizations? Because again, we're not the first people to rent this apartment by any stretch. Are they stuck here with us? And then it goes into, you start delving into other stuff like, if there were previous versions of us or older civilizations, or are they part of the Hollow Earth? Are some of them living down there? Because if they are trapped with us, they aren't living on the surface, at least the ones that don't look like us, and you'd want a good place to hide. That would be it. And then, of course, the last option there, because people have thrown this at me, it's like, who are the first people to rent this apartment? Well, no, because it's a good question. Because really? if you're thinking biblically, then you know who the first group was, and that was the fallen. And
oh my gosh,
I know. And then you're talking, and then it goes into a whole different road, which does this become a jailbreak scenario where whoever's underneath is actually letting the civilization build up and find out what they can do from a novelty standpoint to move forward. It's like, can you help? Can you think of a way to get out that we haven't thought of yet? It's like, what do you got? Well, we got atomic weapons. That's okay. That didn't work. What else you got? Well, we got HARP. Frequency thing. That's not bad. What else you got? Well, we got CERN. Ooh, doorways. That's not bad. That may work too. Anyway, there's all sorts of fun ways you could go with this. So I'm just saying there's a bunch of possibilities, but right now I'm working on the main one, and that is just getting the word out and letting people know.
Awesome.
How's that for an segue?
That is so cool. And the questions started coming again. So, oh my gosh, will you come back?
Yeah, you bet. I'll absolutely come back. You just let me know. I'm here for you.
Oh, fabulous. This is exciting. Oh, this is too exciting. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for being on the show again and asking these questions. And I learned more on this one. And I kept writing down a bunch of stuff to research now.
Cool.
So, yeah, I'm a researcher. You're right. I'm the curiosity kills the cat. So I would be one of those that bumped into the fence and angered the fence gods. Yeah, I would be the one.
Sorry, I got dark in here. There was a flash flood warning coming in pretty quick. So.
Yep, it happens. It happens. Thank you so much for being on here. And thank you guys for tuning in and asking such wonderful questions. And thank you for being polite about questioning what this is all about. Because it's not about who screams the loudest. It's about finding out the truth and finding out what is really going on. So I appreciate you guys being nice and civil when you ask the question. So thank you, Mark, so much for being on here.
Thank you.
I guess, and then we will see you on the next video. Bye.
Bye-bye.